Let us pray. Dear God, at last this day has arrived. Years of labor and achievement, and now we are here. With gratitude and celebration, what more could we ask? Emerson knew, what lies behind us and what lies before us are as tiny matters compared to what lies within us. How busy we can be and forget to see. So keep us, dear Lord, that we not lose sight of the place within, where imagination and hope and possibility and new begin. With dignity and hope, with graciousness of soul, with the knowledge we now have, may these together lead us forward, to innovate and solve, to heal and discover, to invent and create anew. Melting distrust and quieting fear, embracing as friends all we meet on the road. To discover together horizons not yet imagined. Bless us now as we go forth. Bless the parents, friends, and benefactors who have walked with us so far, that we may embrace this world in its fragile worth and walk always together in peace and generosity and life. Amen, O God, amen.
Good morning, and welcome to this wonderful event. My name is Tyler Stovall, Dean of the Graduate School of Arts and Sciences, and it is my privilege and my honor to welcome you today to this ceremony of graduation for the class of 2021. My welcome to all our families, to all the friends, to all our colleagues, staff, and faculty of the Graduate School of Arts and Sciences. Above all, welcome and congratulations to our graduating master's and doctoral students in arts and sciences. Let me be one of the most important people to welcome you and congratulate you on this august achievement. Today's ceremony is taking place online for the second year in a row, and this is something that we've had to adjust to. And we very much regret not being able to hold this ceremony in person. However, it's also important to note that we are fortunate indeed that technology has enabled us to rise above the challenges of the pandemic and to hold this ceremony and to bring ourselves together even if we were not able to come together in person. I very much look forward to future ceremonies that will be in person, but I'm also very happy that in spite of all the challenges, we are nonetheless able to come together to celebrate our graduates. Now, this has been a year like no other that we've experienced at Fordham in dealing with our educational process and dealing with our graduation. COVID-19 started last year, and last year was certainly shaped by the interruption, the brutal interruption of the educational process starting in March of 2020, which led up to graduation. But at least last year, we had most of the year to pursue our education and our processes as normal. This year, on the other hand, has been entirely shaped by the restrictions imposed by the COVID pandemic. It has truly been a year like no other. It has brought challenges to our graduates, to faculty, staff, and students throughout Fordham University. And yet, I think we can say, and we can celebrate the fact today, that we have risen above those challenges, and we are enabled to celebrate our graduation and the progress of our graduates. It has been a hard year, but it's been a well-won year of progress. Let me just say a few words about the kinds of challenges that our graduates had to face this year and the kinds of issues that they had to deal with in order to pursue their education. Classes had to be rethought entirely in many cases, and for many of our students, especially those students who were new this first year, this meant getting used to an entirely new kind of education, getting used to dealing with professors remotely, getting used to forming bonds with their fellow students that were not the bonds you form from sitting next to each other in a classroom or from hanging out in the hallway together, but rather online through virtual technologies. Let me note that in particular, many of our students came to Fordham for one-year master's programs, so their entire experience of Fordham University was a remote experience. This is something I can relate to because this is my first year as dean at Fordham Graduate School, and it has been an entirely remote experience. Not something I expected and something I had to, like many of our graduates, get used to. Many of our doctoral students who are receiving their degrees today were also teachers. And as teachers, they had to adjust their own teaching of undergraduates to the demands of the pandemic. They had to develop online courses or hybrid courses. They had to create new ways for their students to get in touch with them, to work with them, to submit their requirements, to be part of the classes that they were teaching. This was also a great challenge for many of them. In addition, many of our students were engaged in research that involved travel, especially international travel and research, and this became much more difficult during this past year. Many people had to change their plans dramatically in order to cope with the restrictions on travel. Many people who were students are also parents. And with the closing of the schools, of the K through 12 schools, and the increased difficulty of acquiring daycare, they had to adjust their own educational lives. And then finally, and most importantly, it is vital to underscore the fact that many people were dealing with the actual pandemic itself. That this is a pandemic that cost the lives of over 500,000 Americans by the end of this year. And our students were among those people affected, and they had to deal with the impact of the pandemic on their family and friends and loved ones, as well as themselves. So there was a lot to deal with this year. There was a famous priest in the French Revolution called the Abbé Sieyès, who at one point was asked what he did during the French Revolution, and his response was to say that he survived. I think we could excuse our graduates if we asked them what they did, and they said simply that they survived. Now, this was not the only challenge of this year. The academic year began with the whole crisis over Black Lives Matter and the murder of George Floyd. It was characterized by a renewed commitment by Fordham University to anti-racism and racial justice. And this was something that also involved the efforts of many graduate students and took much of their time and concern. So there was a lot going on, but let me just say to our graduates here for a moment, I am very proud of you because you did not just survive, you overcame, you triumphed, you created many different achievements, and you are here today, in spirit and online, if not in actual person. Today we are celebrating the graduation of 400 people receiving master's degrees and 49 people receiving doctoral degrees. This year's work in particular involved not just the normal work of graduate students, not just teaching, not just going to classes, not just doing archival and other kinds of lab research. It also involved developing new ways to pursue the educational mission under the impact of COVID-19. And students did that in all sorts of ways. So the GSA, the Graduate Student Association, organized a weekly series of writing programs virtually to help students with their writing, or a group of students that came together to polish their Latin, to do their Latin studies and to therefore further their research in that language. All of these things were in addition to the normal work of graduate students, and they both helped graduate students do the progress that brought them to this day, and also help them form a community for which I think Fordham University is justly known. It involved using the values of Fordham University, the values of social justice, the values of intellectual inquiry and curiosity, the values of cura personalis, concern for the whole person, body and mind, to further their own goals and the goals of their class and their cohort. So I want to congratulate you for succeeding in this extremely difficult year, both in terms of your own degrees and in terms of the progress and survival even of the Graduate School of Arts and Sciences in general. Let me just finish by saying that in many ways, we think of graduate students as students, but they are also, even more importantly, the creators of new knowledge. These are people that come up with the ideas that will shape the future, whose research and whose study will determine what tomorrow's will look like. At no time is this more important than it is today. One of the things we are trying to figure out at Fordham and throughout the United States and throughout the world is, what will the post-COVID era look like? And I think most people like me believe that it will not simply represent a return to the years before 2020, 2019. Many of the changes that have come out as a result of this crisis will be permanent. And I think the work of our graduate students is going to be absolutely central to figuring out what that new world is going to look like, how it's going to be best pursued in the future. These are skills that you have developed in your work here at Fordham, and I think these are skills that will serve you very, very well when you go on to all sorts of endeavors in the future. By your ability to adapt to a radically changed situation in terms of your own education, you have demonstrated your ability to adapt your ideas to a rapidly changing world, and in effect, to be the vectors of that change, to be the change that you want to see and that you will make. This is a contribution that I am very confident you will all make as you go on from Fordham to all sorts of places in the world. I congratulate you for this, and I am very proud to welcome you to the ranks of Fordham alumni and to say once again, congratulations to the graduating class of 2021 of the Graduate School of Arts and Sciences. Thank you.
I'm Dr. Mary Prosedano from the Psychology Department, and I've been given this opportunity to share with you some reflections about Chad Davis, who will be receiving his doctoral degree posthumously at today's commencement. Some of you already know that Chad died suddenly this past January in the second half of his clinical psychology internship at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas. He was virtually finished with his dissertation, on which I've had the honor and pleasure of serving as mentor, and he had just accepted a 2-year postdoc at the Eating Disorders Center for Treatment and Research at the University of California, San Diego. I've known Chad since his second year in our clinical psychology program. That was the fall of 2013. He took my class, Personality Theories and Research, and his style, his intelligent, inquisitive, reflective, and very collaborative style became apparent immediately. So I was delighted when he became my research assistant the following summer, and we worked on a project about the meanings that people give to their personal goals and their stressful life events, a study about stresses and strivings. And we co-authored a conference paper and a chapter. I then got to be delighted again because during the next year, I served as Chad's clinical supervisor during his third-year externship at Fordham's Rose Hill Counseling Center. And Chad again showed such an inquisitive and reflective way of thinking about his work, accompanied by a very genuine, mature capacity to empathize with the students with whom he was working. In addition to these qualities, Chad has possessed what Dr. Tiffany Yip, our department chair, calls his infectious smile. She says it was genuine and beautiful and radiated a warm aura around him. Indeed, I might add, Chad could be a smile, a bright, beaming, intelligent presence with a touch of appropriately timed appreciation of the mischievous, a refined sense of the ironic. And these gifts can come in handy in the academic world with long conversations about dissertations and internships and so on and so forth. And for these and many qualities, we have valued Chad very dearly, and we miss him terribly. After 40 years on the faculty at Fordham, graduation day and other occasions too can bring me a cascade of memories, one of which is of Father McShane saying to graduates, "I want you to be bothered." That is, to be bothered by social injustices and inequities, and for students to use their knowledge for the good. And this comes to mind now because I know that Chad has been bothered in the most laudable way. For example, he's been devoted to understanding and serving the unique needs of members of racial and ethnic and sexual minority groups. But he has been particularly devoted to understanding and treating eating disorders. And this brings us back to the dissertation, a study of predictors of body dissatisfaction and consequent eating disorder symptoms in 200 professional and pre-professional actors. Chad chose this population having been an actor himself with a degree in theater studies from Montclair State University before coming to Fordham. He worked with a small research team. Dr. Michael Hayevsky, a graduate of our psychometrics and quantitative psychology program, collaborated with Chad on analyzing the data. And two now graduates of Fordham College at Lincoln Center, Megan Leary and Janelle Fitzgerald, both of whom Chad had taught a personality class, served as his research assistants. Both Megan and Janelle had spoken to Chad the day before his death. They in New York and he in Las Vegas had discussed their plans to apply to graduate school, and they had discussed the recommendation letters that Chad would write for them. In early May, Janelle recorded a talk based on Chad's dissertation findings for an international conference to which he had submitted a paper back in January, right around the time he accepted the postdoc. Because Chad's mother, Mrs. Norma Davis, would like the dissertation to be published, Michael, Janelle, Megan, and I will work on that this summer. On behalf of the psychology department, I would like to say thank you to Dean Stovall and Father McShane for embracing the idea of Chad's posthumous receipt of his very well-deserved doctorate, and also to thank Dr. Keith Cruz, our clinical psychology program director, for thinking of the idea. And in particular, we say thank you to Dr. Chad Davis.
This has been a very difficult year for our world, for our country, and for every one of you in so many ways, most of them known only to you. But all of us who are speaking to you today are filled with gratitude and pride as we honor your accomplishments and wish you pax et bonum, peace and all good, as you set forth from Fordham University with your masters and PhDs on this May Day in 2021. No one listening needs to be reminded that your graduation is taking place during a multiply challenging, complex, and fraught historical moment. Celebrating your commencement during this easily overwhelming time, there are three things that I truly hope for you. First, I hope that you won't forget to be humbly and gratefully amazed and proud of yourselves, especially since over the past year and a half, you have found yourself involuntarily enrolled into an additional program entitled Completing a Graduate Degree Amid a Global Pandemic, run by the International School of Hard Knocks. This school's curriculum is difficult in the best of times, and being double enrolled while you're trying to complete your graduate degrees, I mean, come on, it's really more than anyone else should have had been asked to bear. But with focus, fortitude, and the help of many, you did it. You passed all the extra tests. You made it through. That is no small thing, so I hope you are feeling gratefully amazed and humbly proud. Second, I hope you'll choose to say and make meaningful goodbyes. Saying goodbye to your program, your faculty, your fellow students, and university at the end of this graduate degree, it's always somewhat ambiguous experience. It's different from the bright line of completion that marks your college graduation. And that's all the more true this year. Amid the rush, the logistics, and just the exhaustion of finishing up, COVID isolation, and with very little reason to don, much less process or parade around in your hard-earned master's and doctoral regalia, it's hard to even frame what are you saying goodbye to, or how to do it. Plus, goodbyes are hard. Yet, writes Anna Parker, goodbyes are important. And when we resist the urge that we all have to ignore or minimize or avoid them, they allow us the opportunity to acknowledge who we are as a result of our experiences and relationships in graduate studies. Goodbye moments invite us to hold the tension between grief and gratitude for what is finished. During this discombobulated graduation of 2021, Parker commends to us an intentional farewell practice comprised of 4 simple but profound steps: feel, celebrate, forgive, and set off. Finding time and dedicating your attention to feeling all the feelings, to celebrating the good that is and has been, to forgiving myself, others, even forgiving the world for whatever needs forgiveness, and then mindfully setting off can help us to traverse this ending honestly, naming the graces and struggles, and giving thanks for having been able to walk through it all and for those who've walked with us. Third and finally, I hope that as you set off from Fordham, you won't forget to notice, and that you'll continue to notice as time goes on, how studying at this university, in this time, in your specific field, has shaped, marked, or if you will, sealed you. And for me, an apt symbol of this marking or sealing is the actual official seal of Fordham University. At Fordham, you encounter this seal, even if we rarely look carefully at it, all over the place. And never more so at graduation. It's on banners, it's on web pages, it's on programs, and it'll be displayed prominently on your diploma. Full of symbols, the Fordham seal points in many ways to the heart of what we hope for you as Fordham alumni. And let me just offer 3 of the many evocative elements I find on the seal. At the center, for instance, is the coat of arms of the Society of Jesus, the Jesuits. In some ways, I hope that each of you has been sealed by the values and sensibilities of your Jesuit graduate education. The symbols are, of course, Christian, and yet images like the cross and nails, also point to universal human realities which your studies have limbed, unjust suffering, pain, grief, and hopes for grace and redemption. Fordham's motto, Sapientia et Doctrina, wisdom and knowledge, distills our university's educational and life hopes for our graduates. Seeking wisdom and knowledge, it's a lifelong quest, and we hope you leave us having made good progress on your own quest. And then lastly, what are those curious flecks that are all around the center of the seal? What do they signify? Tears? Drops of blood or sweat? Well, maybe for all of us, some of all of that at times. But in fact, they're flames, symbols of the gifts conferred by the divine spirit, including gifts of love, joy, peace, courage, and yes, wisdom and learning. Flames also suggest warmth in the cold and light in the darkness and the heat of passion. We hope your Fordham graduate education has strengthened your distinctive gifts and stoked your own passion to share them with our needy world. In closing, as you set off on this spring day with your freshly minted graduate degrees in hand, there's much to celebrate and hope for. But looking ahead, so much also remains unknown, precarious, confusing, or just messed up. For wisdom about how to face and respond to the inevitable hard stuff, poet Ada Limon plumbs the lessons that nature teaches each spring. And with Limon's help, I'm going to let the trees have the last word. She writes, instructions on not giving up. More than the fuchsia funnels breaking out of the crabapple tree, more than the neighbor's almost obscene display of cherry limbs shoving their cotton candy-collared blossoms to the slate sky of spring rains, it's the greening of the trees that really gets to me. When all the shock of white and toffee, the world's baubles and trinkets, leave the pavement strewn with the confetti of aftermath, the leaves come, patient, plodding, a green skin growing over whatever winter did to us. A return of the strange idea of continuous living despite the mess of us, the hurt, the empty. Fine then, I'll take it, the tree seems to say, a new slick leaf unfurling like a fist to an open palm. I'll take it all. Congratulations, and may your paths ahead be richly blessed.
To the graduating class of 2021, it is my distinct honor and pleasure to address you, your families, partners, children, friends, loved ones, and the Graduate School of Arts and Sciences community today. What a year this has been. It's been a year marked by pale blue medical masks and new vocabulary like social distancing and herd immunity. It's been a year when we've spent too much time seeing our reflections on Zoom screens. It's been a year where we've either seen too much or not enough of our families and loved ones. It's been a year of loss of friends and family, loss of routine, loss of normalcy, and loss of words. And somewhere in this mix, this is the year that you're earning your graduate degrees at Fordham University. I have no doubt that your decision to attend Fordham was in part for its focus on education and, quote, care of the whole person, end quote. And you have embodied this mission like never before. As a class, you wrote theses and dissertations, including, quote, the nostalgic structure of whiteness, urban green roofs as wildlife habitats, defining the self-made woman in late 19th century American literature, essays on international spillovers, Russian philosophers in exile, the role of motivation in school-based physical activity intervention, and Coca-Cola, McDonald's, and responses to American global businesses in post-war Italy and France. Illustrations of how you've cultivated your mind and intellect during your time at Fordham. While you've undoubtedly developed your mind, your critical thinking skills, and your empirical skill set in your coursework at Fordham, what this year has laid bare is that intellectual development without corresponding development of empathy, compassion, and grace will leave us short when we're called to respond to pressing local and global crises. You've embodied Fordham's focus on core personalis, the dedication to something greater than your own development, that of your department or your discipline. You've committed yourselves inward and outward to the advancement for all. Inwardly, you supported each other as a graduate student community. For example, through the Graduate Student Association, you sponsored weekly virtual boot riding camps. You set up Zoom meetings to reduce isolation and support each other's research. You created a space for minorities in philosophy, or MAPS. And you and your advisor, Dr. Christina Bruno, formed a Latin reading group in medieval studies. You also promoted GSAS peer-to-peer mentoring and well-being programming through the GSAS Higher Education Leadership Program. Outwardly, you supported other graduate students nationally and internationally. You reflected on the pandemic as graduate students in a collection of articles entitled The Collective Impact of COVID-19, Graduate Students Reflect, published this summer in the Medium, which you, with interdisciplinary finesse, bridge perspectives of students from history, English, theology, psychology, sociology, economics, data science, and social work. And balancing an inward and outward focus, you supported each other so you could support others. For example, you developed a graduate body for cultural diversity, equity, and inclusion, whose mission, and I quote, is dedicated to fostering an academic community that fully welcomes and nurtures the growth of graduate students representing any racial, ethnic background. We understand that diverse voices bring creative solutions to our world's most pressing problems, and we strive to foster this value at Fordham and beyond its gates, close quote. It's these energies that you spent outside of the classroom that exemplify your commitment to issues of social justice, advocacy, and the improvement of marginalized communities who need their voices amplified. Your ability to juggle scholarship with activism underscores the central tenets of what it means to be a scholar activist. You met this moment not by putting aside your studies or your passions, but by committing and recommitting to the communities that you care about and the completion of your degrees. And you are completing your degrees at a time of unthinkable challenge. Some of our master's recipients have had their entire Fordham experience defined, but not confined by remote and hybrid learning. There's never a substitute for engaging with your professors, classmates, and peers in person, but I hope you were able to glean some sense of what makes a Fordham education so special. Others of you matriculated with no expectation that you would graduate and complete your theses and dissertations without seeing your advisor in real life for a meeting for over a year, although that may be a welcome surprise for some. Maybe you had visions of writing the final chapters of your theses and dissertations in a cute East Village coffee shop, but instead wrote these chapters in your parents' basement or in your childhood bedroom. Maybe you had grand plans for a large-scale data collection and had to downscale and rewrite entire sections and chapters of your project. Or maybe you had dreams of doing research in a historic archive of a revered institution, only to write your paper in the pickup line at your child's school. Maybe I'm projecting here. Whatever your specific example may be, it's clear that perhaps like no other graduating class before or after you, you have just demonstrated remarkable strength, persistence, resilience, determination, commitment, and grit to meeting and overcoming adversity. These qualities will no doubt serve you as you move forward into your next adventures. I'd like to leave you with excerpts of what is perhaps a childhood favorite, one that may have particular resonance this year. It's a book by Judith Viorst, and it's about a child named Alexander. I quote, "I went to bed with gum in my mouth, and now there's gum in my hair. And when I got out of bed this morning, I tripped on a skateboard And by mistake, I dropped my sweater in the sink while the water was running, and I could tell it was going to be a terrible, horrible, no good, very bad day. I think I'll move to Australia. At school, Mrs. Dickens liked Paul's picture of the sailboat better than my picture of the invisible castle. At singing time, she said I sang too loud. At counting time, she said I left out 16. Who needs 16? It was a terrible, horrible, no good, very bad day. There were lima beans for dinner, and I hate lima beans. There was kissing on TV, and I hate kissing. When I went to bed, Nick took back the pillow he said I could keep, and the Mickey Mouse nightlight burned out, and I bit my tongue. It has been a terrible, horrible, good, very bad day. My mom says some days are like that, even in Australia. To the class of 2021, the faculty and administrators of the Graduate School of Arts and Sciences and I join you, your families and friends, and those who could not be with us today to commend, applaud, and celebrate you. We celebrate you for earning your degrees under the most remarkable of circumstances, and we celebrate you for lifting us up in what Alexander would certainly deem a terrible, horrible, no good, very bad year. Congratulations.
Hello and welcome, faculty, administration, distinguished guests, and most importantly, the class of 2021 to the GSAS Diploma ceremony. I'm so happy to be here on this truly wonderful day to celebrate you and your momentous accomplishment. Before I begin, I want to extend very warm wishes, wherever you may be, to you and your loved ones after this difficult and unprecedented year. To be here after all the challenges presented by the COVID-19 pandemic is truly remarkable, and all our graduates, masters and PhDs alike, should be very, very proud of themselves. My name is Ryan Sullivan. I'm a PhD student in the History Department and the current Vice President and soon-to-be President of the Graduate Student Association. For those who might not know, the Graduate Student Association, or GSA for short, is a student government organization that operates with two primary objectives in mind. First, we act as a liaison between the student body and the GSAS administration. Second, we coordinate social, academic, professional, and virtual events throughout the year to support both graduate students and foster a community of togetherness across disciplinary divides. When I was first asked to deliver these remarks today, I was both humbled and a little bit terrified. Sure, I thought, I have an impressive streak of successful wedding toasts to my credit, but this is entirely different. I'm being asked to address a group of scholars and professionals graduating with a master's degree or PhD from a top university. Where to begin and what to say? Like any good graduate student, I turned to a most trusted advisor, Google. Searching the web for inspiration, I came across several magnificent speeches. I first listened to Nobel laureate and Holocaust survivor Elie Wiesel tell a graduating class in 2006 that in his life he has learned that learning is a passion that must not be diminished with years. He continued, this applies to memory as well. It needs to be shared, lest it remains stifled, icy, and silent. Certainly a timely and powerful quote. Next, I decided to listen to Oprah Winfrey's wonderful commencement speech to Harvard seniors in 2013. Speaking about adversity, she said, no matter what challenges or setbacks or disappointments you may encounter along the way, you will find true success and happiness if you have only one goal. There really is only one, and that is this: to fulfill the highest, most truthful expression of yourself as a human being. Again, truly wise and valuable words. I even listened to Snoop Dogg's Hollywood Walk of Fame speech, where the rapper graciously thanked himself for always trying to do more right than wrong, and concluded with this: I want to thank me for believing in me. In a sense, he's right. A quiet self-confidence is certainly not a bad thing. Drawing on these wonderful words, I felt ready to write my own remarks. All the templates and how-to guides I read in preparation suggested things like opening with a hook, rely on an anecdote, or tell a story. Taking this advice to heart, I began reflecting on my time at Fordham. I racked my brain trying to think of a particularly poignant or meaningful moment, but nothing came to me. My Fordham story is not particularly unique or distinctive, I thought. I had worked in the private sector for a few years after completing undergraduate coursework, but had always felt a strong push towards pursuing a graduate degree. Fordham's Masters of Arts in Urban Studies program took a chance on me, and I humbly began my academic journey by taking just one course. Enthralled by the intellectual stimulation and Fordham's small class sizes, I soon found myself signing up for more and more courses the next semester while balancing a full-time job. And to those of you here who have done that, my hat truly goes off to you. As I continued in my program, I took more and more courses outside of my department, gravitating specifically towards the field of history, always a love of mine. As my own graduation date approached, I did something I never thought I would. With much help from my advisors, I successfully applied and was admitted into Fordham's PhD in History program. But in searching for a singular aha or eureka moment thus far in my journey at Fordham, I was coming up short. Rather, I recalled a collage of little things, those particularly engaging seminars, the late library nights, and the satisfaction of turning in a research paper at the end of a semester. Like many of you, perhaps, I've also experienced instances of self-doubt and financial worry. But when I challenge myself to reflect even more deeply, I become overcome with a feeling of gratitude. I am grateful to my advisors, professors, peers, and colleagues, of course, here at Fordham, who have all helped me immeasurably as a scholar, professional, and person. But I'm also thankful to my family and friends outside of the Fordham community for their patience, support, and loyalty while I undertake my academic journey. And so, although this day is certainly about you and your accomplishments, I hope you take a moment at some point soon and thank those who have helped you along the way. As I was making my final preparations for this speech here, I noticed that all the speeches that I planned to reference were delivered before the disruption and collective trauma that we all experienced in 2020. This drew me to Michelle Obama's remarks to high school seniors last June when the former First Lady recalled a series of personal tragedies in her own life and asked graduates to use the painful lessons of the past year as an opportunity to forge a new path for themselves and the world based in service to others. Today, whether you are graduating with a master's or doctoral degree, from here on out, you will rightfully be considered an expert in your chosen discipline. But I urge you to take Ms. Obama's advice to heart. Take the lessons of the past year and forge a new, more equitable path for your field. Future generations will certainly thank you. You have all shown tremendous strength and resiliency during your time at Fordham, particularly over the last year. As GSA Vice President, I have seen and heard it firsthand. You have marched and petitioned to advance racial justice, heroically taught undergraduates using this strange platform called Zoom, organized virtual happy hours and socials within your department to keep up morale, and juggled your own coursework. And I'm sure you've done much, much more. I wish I had some final words of wisdom to impart, but if you hadn't already guessed, I do not. Instead, I'll say this. Be proud of yourself today. Be grateful to those who have helped you in this journey, and always be a voice for equality and fairness. Thank you, and congratulations.
I wish to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land we occupy today, the Lenape Nation, and pay my respects to their elders past, present, and emerging. Congratulations to all the graduates, their friends, and their families. What an incredible accomplishment it is to emerge from this year with a graduate degree in hand. You should all be very proud. I am very proud of all of you. I think back to March 2020, the last time I was on campus before COVID closed us down, and I can't help but feel incredibly grateful and lucky to have the privilege of speaking with you all today. I'll bet that this wasn't how you expected your graduate school experience to end. COVID-19 has affected us all to varying degrees. To those of you who have recovered from COVID-19, I am grateful that you are here with us. To those of you who have lost loved ones, I extend my sympathies. I'm sure that each one of you has had to overcome unexpected challenges to be here today. I finished my dissertation in my backyard on a loaner Chromebook hooked up to the battery of my running car. You see, we were a few months into the pandemic, and in my neighborhood, we were also experiencing an extended power outage of more than a week. Then, like many of you, I had my dissertation defense via Zoom with a very tenuous Wi-Fi connection. But we did it. It is finally over. I celebrated with my husband and children on our porch with champagne and tapas. It wasn't the massive celebration I had been imagining for the last 6 years. The giant celebration with everyone I knew gathered together to celebrate my achievement. Instead, I was lucky enough to share the moment with those who have been there with me since the beginning. I also think about the debt we all owe to everyone who supported us through this difficult time. Family members, advisors, professors, dissertation chairs, librarians, and friends, the list goes on. We couldn't have made it to this point without their support. Now it is our turn to support others and to use our education to make the world a more equitable place for everyone. This is how we measure the value of our education, not by salary or whether or not we found a tenure-track position, but by how we use our knowledge to benefit others. Paulo Freire once said, "Men and women who lack humility or have lost it cannot come to the people. Someone who cannot acknowledge himself to be as mortal as everyone else still has a long way to go before he can reach the point of encounter. At the point of encounter, there are neither utter ignoramuses nor perfect sages. There are only people who are attempting together to learn more than they now know." So what does Freire mean by this? From the perspective of an instructor, it means that your place in the classroom is not to be the giver of knowledge. As newly minted MAs, MSs, or PhDs, we all need to remember this. Freire suggests to us that we are all on the same level. We all have something to learn and we all have something to teach. As a professor, I can attest to the validity of this claim. But I think the most important point to take from this is the idea of humility. What does it mean to be humble? For me, humility means to be constantly open to opportunities to learn from others. Sometimes it means to step back so that others can stand in the spotlight. I would not be here today without the support of people who know more about 18th century British literature than I do and were willing to unselfishly share their knowledge with me. I had to learn to be humble and reach out for help. As it turned out, I actually didn't know everything. Once I realized this, I understood better how to learn. If you pay attention to statistics, I can tell you that I shouldn't be here in front of you today. A mother of 5 coming from very humble beginnings might not consider doing a PhD. It's not something I would recommend lightly. I had to learn to be humble while those around me were already becoming experts at it. Humility changed my life. So many have stepped back to allow me to step forward, like the humble acts made by my father, Manuel Zuluaga, who is no longer with us. Sorry. When I was a very young girl, my father once took a box of books and LPs in lieu of payment for a side job. He was an electrician, a janitor, a maintenance man, whatever he needed to do. I remember that Ernest Hemingway's The Old Man and the Sea and a recording of Sergei Prokofiev's Peter and the Wolf were in that box. That gesture changed the trajectory of my life. Soon after came stacks of National Geographics. You might need to Google what those are, and sets of encyclopedias. My mother, Gail Zuluaga, worked nights to support us and went without many of life's necessities to make sure her 7 children were clothed and fed. My husband and children made countless sacrifices so that I could achieve this incredible honor. I am here mainly due to the humility of others. That is the greatest expression of love I have ever experienced. I have been the beneficiary of the humility of others. I am sure that you have all had similar experiences where someone placed your needs above their own. Now we are in a better position to do the same. Your degrees give you the power to change lives. I hope you will keep this in mind as you set out in this uncertain world. I'll end with another quote by Freire. True generosity lies in striving so that these hands, whether of individuals or entire peoples, need be extended less and less in supplication, so that more and more they become human hands which work, and working transform the world. I hope you all find a way to celebrate this great achievement safely with your loved ones, and congratulations to the 2021 graduates of Fordham University Graduate School of Arts and Sciences.
Samantha A. Adelsberg. Adam Joseph Bate. John J. Brennan III. Elizabeth Jane Carlin. Richmond B. Carlton. Julia Kosaki. Julia Crisanti. Nicholas D'Antonis. Mariah Lillian DeCerci. Jeffrey B. Doolittle. Timothy J. Dully. Sarah Elizabeth Duncan Park. Victoria Gardner Emery. Louisa Jolie Forowi. Brandon Edward Frank. John William Gleam. Vanessa A. Guzman. Austin Reed Harrison. Emily H. Ho. Evan David Holloway. Mary Catherine Holman. Lisa Ann Radakovich Holzberg. Justina Maria Jurska. Chris Ann Kelly. Ian T. Kinman. Stephen J. Kudos. Cara Felicia Levitch. Deborah S. Liu. Jess Luzardo. James K. Melton. Jillian Marie Minahan Zucchetto. Candice J. Mutu. Aline Elizabeth Moran. Alicia Helena Lovelit Najdam Jones. James Patrick Olson. Vivian Zuluaga Papp. Dustin Robert Partridge. Carlos David Payan Casablanco. Alexander David Perkins. Emily Healy Picard. Stephanie Ann Yu Poon. Helene V. Purcell. Justin Daniel Reppert. Joseph Paul Rudolph. Angela Sager. Yichin Xiao. Meng Sui. Charity K. Wijiatunga. Rafia Zafar. Sophia Ambro. Obia Nunjumwa C. Anakwanze. Travis G. Aprile. Shad K. Arbab. Rachel Susan Armamentos. James Parson Auchincloss, Madison Grace Aguinba, Sierra S. Baxt, Maya Bernadette Soto Bals, Gabriella Berry, Rigarta Begash, Svi Arye Benov, Samuel J. Blow-Hawayek, Rachel Faye Bloom, Carmen Borca Carrillo, Michael Bote, Elise S. Bargard, Shaw Kennedy Breslin, Hannah G. Buckley, Paul A. Burry, Bianca Rose Campagna, Carly Jo Campbell, Anna Margarita Canero, Nicholas Thomas Catapano, Diana Chan, Julia A. Ciravolo, Annie Malloy Clouden, Carmen Elizabeth Collins, Akira Michelle Collins Hill, Mackenzie K. Conley, Bridget Conway, Haley Cook Tebow, Angelo J. Copatelli V, Zuswan Quay, Gabrielle Curran, Elizabeth Joan Davis, Claire Del Sorbo, Andre de Artinian, Joshua J. DeSon, Alexander Gabriel DeWitt, Brandon Dull, Kimona Dussard, Yvette Duverge, Joshua Alexander Eckley, Phoebe Miriam Ellman, Frances Allison Eshelman, Brooke Elizabeth Evans, Marissa Danielle Fada, Michaela R. Fenley, Anthony Patrick A. Fernandez, Gregory Ferraro, Nicola Anastasia Forbes, Hannah Grace Fort, Anthony J. Fortuna, Julianne L. Fowle, Morgan T. Gartner, Emily M. Gates, Valentina Maria Gaviria, Ontenani Enwe Goshu, Miriam Ganyeva, Taylor Yusung Ha, Samuel Theodore Handelman, John Gregory Hansen III, Moshrika M. Huck, John Alexander Hatcher, Garciela Alejandra Hernandez Flores, Mackenzie A. Heslin Scott, Kyle Eric Hoffman Jr., Livian J. Holler, Elizabeth D. Hallman, Levi P. Halmstad, Isabella H. Hume, James Cove Hurley, Yasmin M. Hussein, Robert Orlando Laboni, Nicholas Nena Ibe, Rachel Iquagru, Patrick J. Inferna, Pak C. Yip, Basisipo Jack, Shaniqua T. Jeffrey, Sabrina Diane Jen, Adam Edward Michael Keeley, Femelo Malakutu Kekana, Jeremy Lamont Kendall, Lizane Kachatrian, Catherine M. Kidney, Caroline M. Kirk, Paul Dawson Lauber, Michelle Leon, Mary Lima Ferreria Busquet, Jincho Leo, Julian Dario Londonio, Daniel Michael Lorenzi, Lyndon B. Lautzenheiser, Arzu Mamadova, Catherine A. Mandalakis, Sajani Gabriela Kavita Montri, Susan Marie Manzino, David Owen Marchioni, Camila Roxana Marcone, Munguza Christine Mayende, Eric McConaughey, Victoria L. McDonald, Mary Kate McGranahan, Sarah J. Millau, Emma Mercer, Rachel C. Meyer, Unjabulo Agustin Mulambi, Abraham Miguel Liriano, Raymond Mitchell, Tara Moran, John M. Morin, Kagiso Stanley Umfalel, Anna Augusta Wyatt Munter, Hannah F. Murphy, Sandile Mayeni, Anne Sophie C. Neumeister, Seth H. Newman, Taman C. Nicholson, Joseph W. Nicolello, Nathan Donnelly Nyhouse, Robert F. Noldicken, Thomas I. O'Connor, Candice Charisma O'Neill, Alexandra Luz Parker, Anija Petrovic, Leah Marie Phillips, Paul John Picciotti, Alessandro E. Pisano, Jessica Marie Plord, Sofia Popovic, Brkena Prendaj, Miriam E. Prever, Wensi Julianne Pua, Haoting Chi, Helena Rampersaud, Felicity Richards, Charles Riley, Patrick R. Rizzi, Kendall M. Rotar, Jake V. Rubin, John Keith Samuels IV, Micah J. Savin, Julia L. Smuckler, Gabriella Schreib, Fabian Julian Scott, Kutso T. Segua, Erica J. Selikowski, Danusha Selva Kumar, Madison M. Sidwell, Emily Silfies, Benjamin D. Sitzer, Connor McNally Smith, Lauren Ellie Spresser, Kindred Fenway St. Germain, Megan C. Stevens, Desislave Stochova Stova, Shannon C. Strohmeyer, Miranda Clark Stuck, Elizabeth Leanne Sullivan, Jen Sun, Shengyu Tao, Morgan Johanna Thweet, Alexa Lenore Dallo Tomas, Olga Uzunova, Cornelius Nostrand Van Cott, Gareth D. Waldeck, Emily Karen Weinberger, Anna Catherine West, Jeremy A. Wieringa, Morgan M. Williams, Kevin B. Wolf, Tara Roblewski, Yue Wu, Jeffrey Bernard Yazwiak, Gianna Zakirjanova, Andy Chung, Lida Zhou, Daniel Zabarth, John Gregor McDougall, Kausa Ahmed, Anela Amadani, Jins Alamuto, Jessica Alvarado Aucapia, Iris Amaya, Frank Quasi Antwi, Federica Arrighi, Victoria Ann Aversano, Nicolas Badilla, Adia Big, Oscar Bond, Wesley R. Barron, Justin Armando Batista,
Dino Becal,
Saruj Behera, Marco Bezi Bezum, Alexa Bezon, Lillian Lucy Bopp, Julia M. Brito, Emma Lenore Orlando Budd, Joshua Cancel, Justin W. Chon, William A. Charles, Tianren Chen, Chi Yo Chin, Ronji Chen, William Chung, Israel John Siriaco, Kayani A. Claros Cruz, Leonie Correa, Maureen Claire Madison Cotter, Antonio Cucala, Nicola Damien, Marlene de la Mota, Michael Sebastian de Nicola, Lana Victoria de Wing, Japmen Kaur Daliwal, Aaron N. Darna, Alpha Umar Diallo, Jocelyn Diaz, Todor G. Dimov, Crystal Divicu, Carla Victoria Dominiquez Melo, Amalia J. Downer, Zachary James Dulac, Danian Charles Easy, Andrew Ehrenfeld, Sienna B. Epley, Joao Ricardo Faustino, Nelia Felice, Erica Daniela Ferrara, Alyssa Nicole Finazzo, Isabella R. Frasetti, Azola Fernando, Hasia Gado Alzoma, Genesis Garcia, Daniel R. Garrett, Calvin B. Ganu Jr., Claire Giordano, Jesse Jurici, Don B. Gurung, Tori James Hall, Mengji Han, Nurul Haq, Julia Harkin, Stephen A. Hellstern, Marjorie Isabella Rose Hewell, Lisbeth Hidalgo, Christopher J. Higgins, Lindsay Elizabeth Holton, Jinshi Hu, Corinne N. Holtman, Jonathan Lee Irizarry, Peter Carlos Israelis. Rohan Maiden Gopal Jalan. Anahita Janasari. Saranya Jayendraprasad. Zhangling Xiong. Kevin Ballou Johns. Kayla Mackenzie Joyce. Aliyah Kavernbash. Marley B. Katz. Kevin Call. Jacqueline T. Kell. Jumin Jennifer Kim. Yugeong Kim. Amelia B. Claypack. Alexander J. Kanuta. Alexios Iosif Kotsis. Mary Catherine Lally. Michelle L. Lamb. Preston James Law. Christopher M. Lee. Modupi Theko Lakena. Shabrina Shamika Leo. Xian Lee. Zhu Li. Joseph S. Lipari. Madeline C. Little. Jifan Leo. Hao Leo. Wei Leo. Kelsey L. Lux. Rogia Macareo. Rodolfo A. Machuca. Emmanuel J. McIntosh. William C. Magnani. Jeffrey S. Mailman. Siobhan N. Manning. Angelo Marcoux. Aubrey Catherine Marshall. Matthew Martello. Kristen A. Martin. Isabella Terry Maceo. Patrick Howard Mayrish. Megan N. McGrath. Brendan C. McShane. Sally G. Melendez. Anastasia D. Melford. Stephen Mendez. Ramatu Mohammed. Nasli Cecilia Montalegre. Jael O. Montenegro. Zad Mothana. Megan R. Musarino. Cristina Mulas Lopez. Gretchen Eberhard Navidi. Joshua Jacob Newman. Zarafet Chi. Nicole S. Northover.
Hermes Nunez.
Milena Jean Aldermat. Victoria O. A. O'Keer. Jacob Dwayne Olson. Hubert Olszewski. Jacqueline Lee Onady, Daisy Ama Orhin, Ronnie Mario Ortero, Evans Owusu, Jeff Paddock, Josimar Bardes Garcia, Allison Carly Pendowitz, Joseph Panaccio, George Charles Perrin III, Trisha R. Prasad, Nicholas John Podoso, Wei Pio, Christopher A. Picnic, Tamara Polchanik, David C. Polson, Chloe Simone Pottsclan Matute, Ken Q, Martin A. Quintana, Vanel P. Raja, Renuma Reza, Lauren Richmond, Matthew James Rijos, Nicole Rose Rizzo, Tiago Cochino Rocha, Thomas J. Rohr, Spencer A. Ross, Isabella Baptista Royes, David Robert Ruwadi II, Justina Samuel, Marcela Sanchez, Fatumanta Sankara, David Santillan, Angelo Joseph Scarcella, Daniel Felix Schoenberg, Dana Florence Screen, Aparajito Sen, Malia Shahid, Adi Silva, Savannah Burrell Simpson, Tion Siakrishnan, Malcolm A. Smith, Jahaira Solonier Garcia, Arlen Stafage, Samuel Alexander Stein, Mengyao Sun, Shengyung Tang, Michelle Mavis Thompson, Christopher Thompson, Balda Stephanie Tirone, Naija E. Torres, Idris Ilyas Tofik, Tenzing Sring, Michael F. Tynes, Stephen James Ursell, Lucia Vacchiano, Ileana van der Linde, Caitlin C. Walsh, Tong Wong, Hong Yong Wang, Wong Kaiu Wong, Sonia R. Williams, Kalani Marie Williams, Timothy Y. Wong, Keizhong Shang, Lixing Hu, Weifeng Yan, Jinhao Yang, Shibo Yang,
Kim Marie V. Yap,
Emmanuel A. Yibowa,
Seth Yeboha,
Yuna Yuan, Saad Ahmedus Zaman, Chinkin Ja, Tianyu Zhong, Jiairue Zhong,
Zihan Chung, Zhengzhi Chong,
Fengnian Zhao, Kevin Zhou,
Suzanne Zhen,
Junjie Zhou, Chongjie Zhou, Tomer Zlakzauer,